got to start with the most interesting thing that probably happened this weekend, and that is the Owen Scoggins pickup controversy. So if you missed it, sudden death playoff between Valerie Manahano and Owen Scoggins. Owen putts out on a hole. Valerie's under the basket to tie that hole. She asks to pick up the disc. There's allegedly an acceptance there. She picks it up, starts walking away. Well, you can't really do that. They had to put the disc back, finish the hole. Weird situation. So I don't know your whole take on this controversy. Did she break a rule? Because that's really under scrutiny right now. And then was this situation handled correctly, regardless of the rule being broken or not by the tournament staff? Brody, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I think what's happening right now is we're starting to see more occasions of where the PGA needs to tighten up the rule book, because what happened, everyone watching, including the commentators, we were all kind of like, well, we were all just like, what just happened, right? We all had some sort of idea that you weren't supposed to do that and you weren't allowed to do that. And the idea that you can just basically say, oh, it never happened, don't worry about it, and move on. It kind of held like a cloud over it of where it's like, this is weird. This is something messed up, and we're just going to act like it didn't messed up. Now, I'm sure everyone ran to the rules to actually read and see what went down. And I think this is where the PDGA has their biggest issue, is because in disc golf, they have a rule book. The people that are enforcing the rules are not just the marshals or, Nate Heinel, the TD, but also the players themselves. And so because of that, each player is technically a referee. Now, when you look at the NBA, the NFL, other sports that are officiated, the ref might interpret the rules different than other refs, but they're at least calling it the same for that game, and everyone's playing under those rules. The problem with the PDGA is if I read that rule and I interpret it one way, Trevor, and you read that rule and you interpret it another way, we could be playing on different cards and be playing completely different ways. And I think ultimately looking at it, you can interpret it one way versus the other. And I think ultimately that's the biggest issue.
Yeah, the ambiguity of the language is tough, but I think, I agree. We all knew something had gone down that seemed off and shouldn't have. Hunter, how do you see things?
Yeah, so the rule in question here is Rule 810F. And the language that gets people caught up is they have two parts. One, it's a player who intentionally interferes with another player's disc. And the secondary one is it's allowed if it's for retrieval. Right. So that's kind of the two things where people are getting hung up, because some people are saying, A, Owen didn't intentionally interfere, or B, she did intentionally interfere, but it was for retrieval. So where I stand, I talked about this on Grip Lock, is I do think a rule was broken. I do think this rule was broken. But given the fact that in this situation, you had the whole field, literally the whole field that was playing in agreement because there's just two of them left, and the tournament director was right there, I also do think the right no call was made. Because it was a confusion where you had Valerie like, oh, okay, yeah, we can pick up and move on. It's match play. Owen's like, okay, I'll grab it for you, walk away. And then Heinel's like, hey, look, we got to put that back. So first off, intentionally interfere. I do think that this is an intentional interference because, she did interfere with her lie. As of picking it up, that lie was not there anymore. We actually saw Valerie put it back in a place that I think was farther away than where her original lie was. A lie doesn't get there if it's not interfered with. So I don't agree with that point. And then retrieval, I don't agree with that argument because you can't retrieve a disc that's still in play, which that one is. So there is no retrieval. The retrieval is like, my disc is out of bounds. We all see it OB. I mark, I throw, Trevor picks it up for me. Great. That was retrieval. That's allowed. Picking up a disc in the middle of the fairway is not retrieval. That's not allowed. So I do think Owen intentionally interfered. I don't think retrieval works, but I do think a no call was correct, given that it was this really weird situation where the whole field that was in play being affected had agreed you're good to pick it up. And for the spirit of the game, quote unquote, as people like to throw it out there, I don't think it would have been fair to be like, this is how this tournament and this playoff ends. No player would have been happy with that. They wanted to play it out, and I'm glad it went the way it did.
Okay, Dustin, how do you interpret that language, and do you agree it played out how it should have?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this situation, I can understand the confusion when you're in a two-person playoff that is sudden death, so it's not an aggregate and no other players are involved, that you would kind of feel like you're in a match play situation. And obviously, during match play, this type of action is commonplace to concede whenever you get into these certain situations. This also had zero impact on the result of the whole, and it certainly had zero impact on the outcome of the tournament. And so with that in mind, yes, you can argue the ideas of rules and enforcement and how you interpret language, but the whole thing is, at the end of the day, a big nothing burger to me. And so I really don't care personally. Now, yes, the intentional interference is the key word into this. And yes, Owen intentionally picked up the disc and she did therefore interfere with the lie. But two people are at fault at that point because Owen asks, can I pick it up? Val agrees with her. And so really both people are kind of breaking the rules at that point when I look at it that way. Now, the other big thing to look at here is there's rule 810A that states if a thrown disc has been moved after coming to rest in bounds on the playing surface to a place where it first came to rest as agreed upon by the group. This situation happened when Calvin Lundquist picked up Calvin Heimberg's putter at hole 1 at the toboggan, where he accidentally just picked up the wrong putter because they looked the same, I believe is what it was. Now, that one you can argue intent because he obviously wasn't trying to pick up Calvin Heimberg's disc. He was trying to pick up his. He just got it wrong. But at the end of the day, they put the disc back where they thought it was best. They played on. No stroke penalty was given. I think this is a similar situation to a degree, and I think they handled it the right way. I think this rule just needs to be worded like, what intent should really mean. Like, is it malicious intent? Is it an accident? That sort of thing I feel like could be covered in the rules a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of this hinges on where you place the intent. Is it intend to do something or intend to do something maliciously? Mike, do you agree? Do you think because of the nothingness that resulted from this that it ended up being okay, or is there more that needs to be done to prevent this?
Well, since I'm going last on a yes or no question, I'm going to fill it with some stuff. First of all, I think Dustin's being way too nice, saying that he can see why this could have happened. It's crazy to me that two professional disc golfers thought they could pick up in a non-match play scenario. So that was crazy. And then the other thing is, I wish Owen would have won because this would have been way more exciting to talk about. Or even better yet, I wish they would have just gone and Val threw, because now Val broke a rule. But no rule was broken here, in my opinion. I think there's been talk of like comparing it to Calvin Lundquist, and well, it's not the same because one was on accident, one was on purpose. But really the same thing applies here, where Owen covers the rule here on number 2 of retrieving a disc. Now, she retrieved it prematurely, but in her intent was to retrieve the disc for the competitor. Similar to Calvin Lundquist, didn't intentionally pick up the wrong person's disc, but he thought that disc was done being used, just like Owen, even though incorrectly, thought the disc was done being used. It's the same thing. And so as long as you put the disc back and there's no issue here. Moving or obscuring a thrown disc, you have to look at it in that sense of moving a lie or obscuring a lie, taking a lie and putting it somewhere else, or obscuring, hiding a disc so your opponent can't find it. In no means is that what happened here. And so I don't think interference really applies when the intent was to give the disc to the opponent. It's no different than like if I am walking down the course and I pick up a disc and say, oh, it looks like somebody lost their disc, thinking everyone's done. And my opponent goes, oh, no, that's mine. I haven't thrown yet. And I haven't moved, and I put it right back down. No penalties ever given in that situation. And Owen didn't pick it up thinking it was not finished. She thought it was finished. So her intent was to retrieve the disc back to her opponent. So I think there's no rule here. I think what would have been really interesting is if Nate wouldn't have been there and Val goes and throws, because now Val definitely broke a rule by not finishing a hole. I think that would have made this way more of a mess, but I don't think any rule is broken here at all.
Yeah. Can we talk a little more about this, Trevor? Because
yeah.
I do think this is a fascinating thing, because I think, I don't know if we're going to talk about the Gannon Burr time violations and all that situation, but it's one of those things of where certain rules are being called, certain rules are being enforced, and other ones aren't. I don't think some of the arguments that you guys made, I don't think they're necessarily great arguments. The idea that, Owen winning this way would have been terrible, and so therefore we shouldn't make that call. I mean, I think it would have been terrible if Val would have missed that putt and Owen wins, but I just don't think you can just not call certain rules because you want the outcome to come a certain way. Ultimately, if Val didn't want to win that way, Val still would have had control to be able to lay up a couple times, to tie the hole, and then go play again. It wouldn't have just been over. Dustin, I don't know how you're confused about that. If Owen got a 2-stroke penalty, Val could have laid up, to tie the same score as Owen.
Oh, okay. Laying
And
up
so-
twice inside the bullseye would have been kind of weird, but yeah, I guess you're technically right. She could have done that. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
I could see it happening.
If Val
Yeah.
didn't
No, I
want
get
to
what
win
you're
that
saying.
way,
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
all I'm saying is, to Hunter's point, if you read it, because I think it's really interesting, the word intentionally, with like the Calvin Lundquist thing, like he intentionally pulled it up. He wasn't, what's the thing when people say 3, 2, 1, they snap and you're like hypnosis. He wasn't under a spell. There wasn't someone out there controlling his body. He intentionally touched that disc. To me, how I read this rule is if I'm going down the fairway and PDJ's Mike's disc is in the fairway and I trip and fall and I hit his disc and it moves, that was unintentional. Or if I step on his disc not knowing it's in tall grass, that is unintentional. Me looking at a disc in the fairway and picking it up and being like, hey, did anyone lose a disc? I'm intentionally doing that. You know how you don't get stroked and get penalties? Don't pick up the disc. I don't know how that's a hard rule. And so I think they just have to change the rule. If they don't want it to be this way, change the rule. But picking up someone else's disc should be, in my opinion, reading the rules here, is a penalty. I don't see how it's not a penalty with what the rules
Can I play
stated
devil's
here.
advocate really quick? What if
Yes.
you have two identical discs, and so you're not going to know whose disc it is until you pick it up and look
That's
on the
under
other
the
side
rule.
for a mark?
It's
Oh,
for
okay.
marking. That's
Fair
in the
enough.
rule.
So,
Yeah, but
Brody,
you have to
do you
pick the
think
disc up intentionally to figure that out.
Brody, do you think Cal broke a rule then?
Calvin Lundquist?
Yeah.
He intentionally picked up the disc.
But I think it's
But do you
different.
think he broke the rule?
The rule
As
says
wrote?
you can't. The rule says you can't intentionally interfere with someone else's disc. I think he intentionally. And again,
Okay.
this is where
Well,
everyone
that's
has.
if that's your consistent take, that's fine. But
I don't-
you
but
can't
I-
have one
I
be.
disagree.
You can't have one be the other.
I know.
I do, and I'll
You-
explain
that's
why.
why you can't.
Hold on, Hunter.
I
real
can,
quick,
and I'll
Hold
explain
on.
it. I can explain it fully. It makes perfect sense.
But at the end of the day, this is why the rules, the PGA needs to fix the wording of these rules, because when I look at intentionally interfering with another player's disc,
Correct.
I think picking up someone's disc, thinking it's yours when
Yes,
it's not,
key.
is intentionally interfering.
It's not because you thought it was your disc. So you weren't intentionally interfering with another player's disc. You thought it was yours. You were
Right,
intentionally interfering
Owen-
with yours.
And
Owen
thought
didn't
the
think
whole,
it was her disc.
Owen thought the hole was over, so
but she
was
didn't think it
picking
was
up the
her
disc.
disc.
Right,
So
but
she was willing to break a different
those
rule.
two discs.
But she didn't think it was her
those two
disc.
discs have the same status. They both are unfinished, right?
No.
Calvin didn't. How are they not? They're both unfinished, right?
Because Calvin thought Calvin thought he was picking up his own disc. So he was not intentionally
So
interfering
he
with
thought
Calvin
that disc was
Heimberg's,
done being used, right? That's why he picked it up.
which his would have been, correct.
But Owen thought that disc was done being used because the hole was over because she gave it up. They both thought the hole was over incorrectly, and they both incorrectly
No,
picked up the
Calvin
disc.
didn't think it was over incorrectly. His hole was
Yes,
over.
he did. He thought the
just
hole.
grabbed
He
the
thought
wrong
that was his
disc.
disc.
Correct.
Yeah, but
he didn't think the hole was over incorrectly. He
yes,
thought
he
his
did.
disc
He
was
thought
wrong.
he thought he
No.
was picking that disc
was
up
not.
because it was done being used.
Mike, I don't
Correct,
see
he
how you
thought
don't see
that
the
disc
difference
was
between these two
done being used.
situations. It's so clear.
He had made his putt, so the hole
Mhm.
was over. He
Right.
thought he was picking up his disc. He
Right.
picked up a disc still in play. The hole wasn't over. And
But
she
she thought it
intentionally
was
picked
over.
up a disc.
But she
that
thought it was
doesn't
over.
matter. That's
I
not
But she
in the rules.
knew for sure
That's
she
not in
wasn't
the
picking
rule.
up her own disc.
She was intentionally interfering with another player's disc.
Hold on. If Val putted that out, let's say Val putted out
Yeah.
and forgot about picking up her disc.
Then fair game.
Owen goes, oh, hey, you forgot your disc, and she's retrieving
That's
her disc
allowed.
for her.
Correct.
That's the same status as
Incorrect.
what Owen thought the hole
That
was.
disc isn't in
Owen
play,
thought the
though.
hole was
that
over.
disc isn't in play.
But
That's
she
my
thought
thing.
it was
It
out
was
of play.
over.
But she thought it was out of play. So then it's the same thing. The intent
It's
is the
not
same
the
as what
same.
Calvin did.
But no, it doesn't talk about malicious intent or what your intent is. It just says intentionally interfere, which she did.
Okay, but
Well, I think the problem-
Can we
I
just
think the
watch
hang
this and
up-
agree that this rule is so bad that it's causing this argument right
the
now?
hang up
Like,
here is whether
that's the
you
lesson.
consider it, whether you consider the action the intentionality or your
Yes.
intent the intentionality. Because you guys are arguing, Hunter is on the side of it's intentional because you meant to pick it up. Mike is arguing the side of it's not intentional because the interference part was not intentional. That's the whole argument here.
The tough part is the word interfere, like it's just poorly written because intentionally interfere, I view it as purely the lie. I view it as I intentionally interfere with my phone by picking it up.
Can I
That's
ask
what
this
I'm viewing as
question?
intentionally
Right.
interfere.
Can I
So
ask this
it's just
question?
worded really poorly.
If I have a weird lie inside of circle and I intentionally put my hand in front of me to give me a better stance and I putt, that is against the rules, correct?
Yes.
If you're supporting
Now-
yourself, yeah.
Correct. Now I go and I putt. I'm now, second scenario, I'm in a legal stance. I go and I putt. I lose balance and I intentionally put my hand out to support myself so I don't fall on my face. Is that also a penalty?
In this inside the circle?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to display balance.
However, one I wasn't doing on purpose and the other one I was doing on purpose. My point is, I don't think when you're looking at the rules and you're doing rules, when you start making rules where it's like, were they doing it on purpose or were they weren't doing on purpose? That's way too ambiguous. I don't
I
like
kind of
that
agree
at
with
all.
that.
It needs to be black and white. It doesn't matter if Owen thought that was her disc or didn't think, or Calvin thought that
The
was.
word.
Just
I
don't
agree. I agree that the current language is ambiguous enough that I agree with Hunter that I would have officiated it the same way because the rules allow for it. But
Correct.
it
I
should
don't
be
think it's
black and
wrong.
white so that when the situation happens, Nate Heinold can stand on the call and he can point to the rules and say, guys, take it up with the rule book. It's very
That's
clear.
I think a rule was broken, but I think the right call was made in a no call because the rule is so
It could
ambiguous.
go either way.
Correct.
Exactly.
So it's like, if you can argue it till you're blue in the face and have 5 different people from the PDGA tell you 5 different things on it, then you can't make the call in that
That's the thing.
situation
The language,
to change the tournament.
The language just allows for that. So yeah, I think
I'm with the people that think that no rule was broken. I could see how they could see that, but I'm also on the side too where I do think a rule is broken, and that's where it shows you that this is a bad rule and they need to
If you just had a rule that said if you touch someone else's disc, it's a penalty, it's just over. Like,
I don't think the word intent. Maybe there's a different way, but I feel like the word intent shouldn't be in a rule book.
Correct.
Because I could drop kick your disc and be like, oh my gosh, I thought it was a pine cone, dude. I'm so sorry.
Right.
Prove me wrong.
Intent's not supposed to matter in any of these rules unless the rule has intent written in that specific rule. And intentionally is describing interferes. So like the intent of what you did does, like, you intended to pick it up, you intended not to pick it up. It
should be malicious interference. That should be the rule.
Unfortunately,
and if you add malicious to it, it fixes it, right?
We talk about this all the time.
The game
interfere. The
That's
game of golf.
I said malicious. No, get rid of intent. Malicious interference.
Also, get rid of malicious because that's also something of where some people can decide.
Like if you pick
I mean, guys, at the end of the day,
just don't touch someone else's disc. I mean,
that's the other solution.
But I think the rule should be written in a way like Calvin Lundqvist definitely should not have been stroked. And I think there needs to be a way to not stroke him. I just think that makes sense.
We've talked about it before, but rules of golf will always have ambiguity. I mean, if you think about ball golf, like if Zach Johnson is standing and taking a practice swing and accidentally shanks the ball into the woods, this has happened. If he didn't intend to address the ball and hit it, and I think intent is mentioned in that rule book.
That's only on the tee.
It doesn't count. Well, right. But I'm just saying, like, that is intent. Intent is also in the PGA rule book. Like, golf is the gentleman's game. Like, it's the way the rules are always going to be written. There's never going to be perfection. Now, what I will say is, in the case of this rule, yeah, it would be a little bit weird, but you could just say you can't touch somebody else's disc, and then there wouldn't be an issue. Like, it would be that simple. Just don't touch their disc.
The thing, obviously, looking through these rules for this that I found the funniest is you can alter the throw of someone's disc if it's to prevent injury. So, like, you can just, that was going to hurt the person 50 yards behind me, so I swatted it down.
Mr. President.
Yeah, the spotters are in trouble.
Another rule
I've said multiple times that, like, I really want to get myself in a position where I'm like at an OB line and, you know, a player I like is throwing and I can sacrifice my body to get that disc back in bounds. Like, I want to be the spectator that the disc is coming out of bounds and, like, I just jump up and hit that thing and get it back in. I just think that'd be hilarious.
We were talking about this yesterday, and Goose brought up another rule that he looked into. Apparently, like Nate Sexton doing like the little spinny thing before he putts, that's a practice throw, and technically you can stroke him for that.
How?
What? It's always in contact with his hands, though.
It has. No, I think at some point
it's stuck in between
him
his hands.
specifically, I think sticks to his palms.
There's some people that do a little toss.
Yeah, but
some people that do a little toss, walking down the fairway, tossing like a disc up in the air. Technically, that's a practice stroke.
Did they change the rules?
It
has to travel 10 meters or something.
It has to travel a certain distance now.
I think they added that.
Because you couldn't toss discs back to your bag.
Yeah,
but then
I'm telling you, Aaron Gossage looked this rule up and was specifically talking to me. I think what you guys are thinking about is the 25 feet, and that's towards your bag.
Oh, it's only towards your bag? Like that's
Correct.
rules written? That's crazy. Wow.
Any throw that's not made is a competitive change your lie, except for a throw that's made either to set aside an unused disc or to return a disc to a player and
Which
it
is
travels
neither
less
of
than 5
those.
meters in the air.
Correct.
A drop
So
is not a practice
topping-
throw.
You toss it
topping
up
a
to
disc
yourself.
in the air.
that would be a practice throw. I would agree.
And
I agree.
I would just say you got to slow mo the Sexton.
We
I
might
think
have
sometimes
to.
when he spins it, I think it's
Yeah,
out of both.
It
I think
might.
it's out of both his hands.
Wow.
So it's just like there's
Get
a
me
lot
on
of
a
rules
car
like
with Nate Sexton.
That's very
there's a
funny.
lot of rules like this that I just thought that was funny. Aaron brought it up when we were talking about this.
Anyways, comment down below, sound off here. Let's hear your takes on the Owen Scoggins things. Who do you agree, disagree with? I think there's, a lot of ambiguity, and that's just what kind of ends in the circular arguments that we get with this situation.